Hello and welcome to second in the series of the Gyan Chakra dialogues. Myanmar in our neighborhood is a very important country to us. This country not only borders three of our states, it also borders China and has had a very volatile history. A volatile history that impinges on our security as well. Words like Rohingya, cross-border movement, etc., etc., have been bandied about and talked about whenever we talk about Myanmar. Now, to discuss this fascinating subject of Myanmar, the unfolding story in India's neighborhood, I have with me as a guest Major General Shammi Raj, AVSM SM, who's a defense analyst and a scholar. Before I turn to him with my first questions and introduce him, his profile, I just wish to quickly add that Gyan Chakra, the think tank, is a Chandigarh Tri-City based think tank. It was set up by a Western Command of the Indian Army. It is also facilitated by them. But full disclosure, views expressed on this platform are entirely those of the participants. These don't have any official sanction, and we don't at all have any access to classified material. So whatever we speak is out of our own humble scholarly abilities. Now, Shammi Raj, he's had an illustrious career. He has served for over 37 years in the Indian Army and served in all the theaters. He commanded his unit in a high altitude area along the line of actual control and in CIA operations. And thereafter went on to command an independent infantry brigade, once again in a high altitude area in Kargil along the line of control, and finally an infantry division along the western borders. And of course, he's done a lot of other prestigious appointments within the army in operations, administration, and personnel management, including a tenure abroad in the United Nations as a military observer. He's a double MPhil in Defense and Strategic Studies, having attended the coveted High Command course in the Army War College and subsequently the National Defense College course in Delhi. And he continues to pursue all this and studies in the same discipline. In his last assignment, he was the Additional Director General Prospective Planning at the Army Headquarters, wherein he dealt with strategic issues of global and regional level and modernization of the Indian Army. And presently, he's on the Faculty of Studies with USI and also engaged as a defense consultant and visiting faculties with other establishments and institutions. So a very warm welcome, General Shammi Raj. Looking forward to your expertise on this very important subject that we tend to perhaps overlook because we are so concerned with so many other issues in our neighborhood as well as in the world. But the fact is, Myanmar is a very important neighbor that we have. And on our eastern flank, we have three of our states bordering it. Then on the other side, it borders China and Thailand and so on. Briefly discuss with me the geostrategic importance of Myanmar.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, my compliments to you, sir, on assuming the reins of Gyan Chakra Think Tank, sir. It's a young think tank, and I am sure under your leadership, it will move from strength to strength, sir, and wish you all the best for that, sir.
Thank you very much.
And my compliments to you, sir, for having chosen Myanmar, a very important country today, and it has considerable bearing as far as our security of the northeastern region is concerned, and especially in light of the Chinese growing footprint in that country, sir. We have to remain engaged with Myanmar, irrespective of the dispensation there. It's become all the more critical than ever before, sir. Now, before as you highlighted the importance of Myanmar in your opening words, now it's a very important country. In fact, a buffer state between India and China on our eastern flank, sir. And as you know that it serves as a land bridge In fact, it's a linchpin of the land bridge, which opens the gateway to entire Southeast Asia, sir. So therefore, its importance can hardly be overemphasized, sir. That is one part, and all our projects, especially the trilateral highway, which is going to be a multilateral highway in times to come, passes through Myanmar. And anything happening in Myanmar pertaining to security in particular have a direct bearing on completion of our project, sir.
Right.
So that is one, sir, one aspect. And second aspect is whatever is happening in Myanmar, whether it is militancy, whether it is the fight between the National Unity Government, which is there in exile, and the present military junta, sir, that has direct security implications in the northeastern region. Right. And also in light of Chinese presence there, which has been growing over the years. And they have been sending their ships in the garb of surveillance vessels, which have been docking at their port close to Yangon, sir, Thilaba port, and which has got dual use. It can be used for military purposes also, apart from being of commercial value. And this is the area where China is trying to gain a backdoor entry into the Indian Ocean region, sir. And that will also offset their Malacca strategy, the choke point of Malacca. To an extent, I think it will help them tide over the Malacca dilemma as well. So therefore, sir, this becomes a very, very important country. And unless we take adequate measures, the Honorable Prime Minister has re-enunciated India's neighborhood first policy, which he had done even in 2014 on coming into power for the first time, sir. That has been re-emphasized. I think we have to give impetus in a manner in terms of economic cooperation, military cooperation, diplomatic engagements, irrespective of the government in part there, so as to not only negate the Chinese growing influence and also get the Myanmaris or the government on board, whatever we plan to do along the Indo-Myanmar border, sir.
Right.
So that is very briefly the geostrategic importance, sir. But before we move on to the next issue of discussion, I would like to highlight some of the benchmarks in the history of Myanmar, sir. You have highlighted the geographical aspects,
Right.
running to south, and 2,000 by 1,000 kilometers. And of course, we have a border of 1,643 kilometers, Indo-Myanmar border, sir. To the north and east is China, sir, Kachin and Shan state. To the southwest is Bangladesh, important though the border is very small. And to the east and the southeast, you have the Southeast Asian countries, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and further to the east, Vietnam and Malaysia, etc. So its geographical location itself lends itself to its geostrategic importance. No, country is basically agrarian in nature, and it's rich in natural reserves, minerals, fisheries, forestry. However, for its machinery, industrial, raw materials, etc., and equipment, it is woefully dependent on the imports. And that is why the sanctions to which it has been subjected to over the years have not allowed its economy to develop. And that is why Myanmar today is one of the poorest countries in the world, sir, with a population of over 5.5 crores and GDP is about 3 to 4%. Sir. No, of course, it was initially part of British India, sir, in 18.
Yeah, so let me come back to the history a little later.
Yeah.
So that's a very fascinating backdrop as far as geostrategically how we are placed. And you talked about the India's low peace policy and the fact that it's a very poor country. And I do recall, as I was mentioning to you before our conversation, that I was CEO of an engineering company, and we were building a road in 2016, 2017. I remember I visited Myanmar several times. I went to Mandalay, Moneva, Yangon. It was that India, Myanmar, Thailand trilateral highway, a 1360 kilometer long highway, which was being built. So we have engaged Myanmar for many years now. Just touch upon some of the key issues of relationship between India and Myanmar. And thereafter, we will go to the internal history, which I will ask you separately. Well, what are the key issues, which define or which impinge upon our relationship with Myanmar?
Sir, firstly, sir, our relationship is based on the 1951 Treaty of Friendship, sir, which was the foundation of our Indo-Myanmar relations. And because of our moralistic approach to foreign policy, we have been advocating restoration of democracy in Myanmar. So that was our principled stand all along. While Myanmar had, for major part of its history, starting from 1958 to 2011, ruled by military and was having a history of civil strife and so on. So our relations did not progress to that extent, which would have been desirable because of our principled stand. So we did not engage much with the military junta, which was in power there. Also, sir, coupled with this were the sanctions imposed on Myanmar by USA and the Western countries for having failed to carry out any democratic reforms, human rights violations, and suppression of the society, sir. So they were subjected to sanctions. So therefore, they had total international isolation for quite some time, or better part of their history. As a result, China exploited the vacuum, and
Right.
they came in a big way, sir, and invested economically in terms of aid and infrastructure projects and so on and so forth. And thereafter, sir, because of our militancy situation in northeastern region, and also the growing Chinese forays into our strategic close neighborhood, sir, India realized that we need to have a shift in our policy. And so,
Right.
so from moralistic policy, we switched to a pragmatic approach, and we started engaging with the military junta in that country, sir, 90s onwards. And thereafter, we have been actively engaged economically in terms of defense and diplomatically, sir. And in 2014, of course, our Prime Minister paid a visit to Myanmar to give further momentum to these relations. And 2018, the land border crossing agreement was signed. We had an integrated checkpost at Bores thereafter to facilitate regulation of the trade with both the countries, sir. So that has been happening, and more importantly, the 3-4 projects which are going on there, we have a very close cooperation in that. One is, of course, the Friendship Highway, which has been there since 2001. That is being upgraded by us, being double lane, sir. And the other one is the Trilateral Highway, sir. So which is going to them, and the further east to Thailand, to other countries. And also this Kaladan multimodal transit transportation projects, now which has been quite a success. You are aware, sir, that Sitwe, that deep sea port, has just been operationalized, and Paletwar further to the north, the jetty is operationalized, sir. So this project is almost 60 to 70% through, sir. Apart from that, we have a project proposal for gas pipeline also, which is yet to be revived. That is yet to take off. So such projects are economically good, and they are in line with our hydrocarbon vision of 2030 for the Northeast. So we have no option irrespective of the dispensation and the recent decision of the government to terminate free move regime and also go in for fencing of the borders. Sir.
I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that.
So that, of course, is the recent decisions. But I'm sure we are in talks with the whatever the government is there. Sir.
I'm sure. So, you alluded to the fact that the world has repeatedly imposed sanctions or shown its displeasure at the lack of democracy and the way the junta has behaved in a repressive manner. In fact, if there is one thing that characterizes Myanmar's contemporary history, it is exactly this, that there has been a huge tussle. As a matter of fact, the coup that took place on the morning of 1st of February 2021, where the democratically elected members of the country's ruling party were the National League of Democracy, were deposed off by the Myanmar military, and which vested the powers in itself. And the fact how the Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi has been treated over the years has all caused a lot of disquiet in the Western world as well as in India. Now, what is the current state of affairs within Myanmar? Also in light of the peace which has been so-called peace which has been brokered by the Chinese.
So,
So where do you think this is going forward? How do you see the internal situation unfold in Myanmar?
sir, first of all, sir, there is no denying that the situation is very critical in Myanmar today, sir. And there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel at this stage, sir. Because post the coup, there were large scale protests in the country, sir. The society had risen against the military junta, sir, especially post win during the election by Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy, sir. As you are aware, sir, 2015 also they had won the elections, and even November 2020, during these elections, they had won even with greater number of seats.
Yeah.
But military junta, for whatever reason, they alleged corruption, rigging of the elections, despite observation of the international observers and the election commission to the contrary. So they did not honor the verdict, sir. And after the coup, there were large-scale protests. Sir. Displacement of people has taken place. Nearly 1 lakh refugees have fled from there, sir. Some to us, some to other Southeast Asian countries, sir. People have been displaced. And as of today, and in the initial stages post the coup, to suppress the protests and the civil society, they took recourse to disproportionate use of force in terms of artillery and air power, and they were then that led to further disgruntlement or discontentment amongst the people, sir. And they rose again. So as a result, something called People's Defense Forces. Now, People's Defense Forces, you are aware, comprising of the armed young people at the grassroots level, sir. And also the defections, large-scale defections took place from the Myanmar army. So they all have joined together, and they are today about 60 to 70,000 in strength, sir. Concurrently, sir, the National Unity Government, comprising of some outlawed, those deposed lawmakers, and also the people, the leaders from the opposition party, plus the representatives of the certain ethnic organizations. So they have formed a government in exile and coordinating the political aspects, whereas the military aspect is being coordinated by the People's Defense Forces. The third component of this combined force is the Three Brotherhood Alliance, as they call it, sir. That is comprising of Tang National Liberation Army, Arakan Army, and Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, the longish abbreviation. So they are the Three Brotherhood Alliance. So today the fight is going on between NUG, under the leadership of National Unity Government, and on their side we have PDF and the Three Brotherhood Alliance and the Myanmar Army. And so the certain major incidents that I would like to highlight, first and foremost, that took place on 27th October last year, wherein this Three Brotherhood Alliance combined together, they launched offensives against the Myanmar forces. And in that, they seized over 400 bases, especially along the Rakhine, Shan, and Kachin states to the north and west. And in these assaults or so-called offensives, Myanmar army was humiliated. So they were not able to withstand the assaults. As a result, there were large-scale surrenders. There were defections also. And today the state is that these so-called resistance forces or PDF led by NUG are in control of up to 50 to 60% of the territory, sir. So that is one. Second incident took place that was in Kachin states to the northeast, bordering China. And that was by Kachin Independence Army, sir. They also launched an offensive and attacked up to 60 military outposts and seized them successfully, sir. And they are also in control of the situation. As late as, I think, last month only, this Karen National Union, KNU, that is an important group in the southern part of Myanmar, sir. They also attacked the border town of Myawaddy, which is an important trade town between Myanmar and Thailand, sir. And they seized the part there also. That is where also the military forces were subjected to humiliating defeat, sir. And today the situation is that the struggle for democracy on the one hand and struggle for probably autonomy by the ethnic armed organizations, 15 to 20 of them, the main groups, is gaining traction. Whereas the military junta has lost control within the country, the law and order situation is on a serious state, sir. The human rights violations continue. The situation along the Indo-Myanmar border is really, really
Yes.
critical, sir. And
Yes.
some of the Myanmarese army personnel even came this side of the border and they had to be repatriated, sir.
Right.
It's a large influx of refugees. And the problem in those is that some of them may be implants of Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-e-Taiba or
Absolutely.
ISI polls even. So that has security implications. So as of today, sir, there's a stalemate situation. I would say that the PDF and NUG have an upper hand at this stage vis-a-vis the Myanmar army, sir. Now,
Right.
coming to
Right.
those efforts to resolve the situation, sir, that was your next part. In the beginning only, sir, once the junta assumed power, they announced 3 priority areas post February 21 coup. So one was to hold the elections at the earliest possible by August of 2022, sir. The second was food and energy security, and third was diplomatic engagements, as they called it, a survival diplomacy with the neighboring countries. But they have failed on all 3 counts, sir. And thereafter, sir, the ASEANs, they thrashed out a 5-point agenda, basically de-escalation of violence, immediate cessation, dialogue, humanitarian assistance, and facilitation of the dialogue, sir. These were the, and also release of the political detainees. So those issues, they brought up certain points to restore normalcy and bring the warring parties to a negotiating table, sir. But nothing concrete has happened on ground so far, sir. So that is the measure. This the peace agreement, which was brokered by China, sir, the place Haijing, that is the lake city next to Kunming, sir. And even there, they had 4 rounds of meetings between the 3 Brotherhood Alliance and the Myanmar army, so military junta forces. So that was finally January this year, it was arrived at, sir. And the key components of this were they froze all kind of operations between the 3 Brotherhood Alliance as also the Myanmar army, sir. Particularly in Shan state, because that affects that Muse border crossing between Myanmar and China, sir. But the only drawback in they agreed to observe ceasefire and not to attack each other, sir. But the drawback in this is that other groups, other than the outside the 3 Brotherhood Alliance, was left out, sir. It addressed only Shan state, to an extent Kachin state also, because of Chinese investment interests and security of the Chinese. Large number of them, they are particularly in the Kokang region, sir. So since others were not on board, both have not been honest enough in honoring its terms and conditions. Its life is also limited, sir. Shelf life is limited.
Yes.
It has also failed to bring about any rapprochement between the warring parties.
Right. Great. So this is really a wonderful exposition on the internal situation that exists within Myanmar today. I think I must thank you for your scholarship. While the volatility in our neighborhood obviously affects us as a country, but we are a little more concerned with what happens on our immediate border, particularly given the fact that even the Chinese efforts are, centered around their own interests and not really about India and Myanmar border. Now, we had in 2018 established this free move regime as part of our Look East policy, or India's Act East policy. And the idea was cross-border movement could be free for 16 kilometers without visa and so on and so forth. We have now terminated it. Can you tell me briefly why we have terminated? What is the implication?
Firstly, sir, free move regime, before that, one question comes to my mind. Was it a strategic blunder to have introduced it at the very first place? It came in initially in 1950, sir.
50, that's
and
right.
Of course, the reasons were very simple, sir. Post the political delineation between India and Myanmar by the Britishers, sir, the kith and kin got divided across the international boundaries, sir. Mizos, Kukis, Chins. So they have close kith and kins either side of the border, sir. Their lands are divided, sir. So in order to keep up their filial relations and ancestral linkages intact without any restrictions. I think this provision of free move regime came about, moving 16 kilometers either side and without any documents, visa, etc., and staying even for 24 to 48 hours of duration.
Right.
So this was a good system. This also facilitated them selling their local produce, because they are depending on the sale of the local produce through a system of border huts and so on, and make their livelihood. So that was another reason they could move freely, sir. So these were the couple of reasons which had socio-economic factors and also political factors. Now, why the government has taken a decision, sir? I would like to link it with the Rohingya crisis, which happened in 2017. I will not dwell much into it. 2017, there was an influx of refugees this side of the border, sir. And some of them, again, were having anti-social, anti-national, and international tendencies, and could be planted by our and inimical intelligence agencies, sir. So that created a lot of issues this side of the border, sir. And so India realized that unless we have proper check along the Indo-Myanmar border, it is difficult to firstly identify the antecedents of these refugees. How do you verify them? There are no documents, etc. So that was, they were coming and not going back, sir. So similarly, their kith and kin were coming from that side, not going back, sir. So that was one major reason, which was not only threatening the security paradigm, particularly in a state like Manipur and Mizoram, and even Nagaland, may not be Arunachal Pradesh to that extent, sir. So it was leading to security aspects, concerns, which we have seen in a state of Manipur. That is one major factor, sir. The second is the threatening the demographic composition itself, because these people without any documents, with the ulterior motives, are coming this side of the border and not going back. Where there is no way that you can identify them or check their character and antecedents. So that is definitely affecting our demographic composition in that area. So the third aspect is the military is totally out of control in Myanmar military. They are not able to control the situation along the Indo-Myanmar border. So this is affecting our insurgency situation in the country. The fourth aspect, and which is very, very important, sir, there are inputs and the UN report also that there are clandestine laboratories which are carrying out drug production within Myanmar, and with the tacit approval or role of the present military government there, sir. And that is passing this side of the border, and it has got implications, as you are aware of, sir.
Yes.
So these 3-4 factors: control of military junta, extreme national interest of the country, and the ongoing problem in Manipur. And I would say that unless we have a stringent measures to regulate the flow of traffic either side of the border, sir, the situation is not likely to be brought under control, sir. So therefore, our government has taken a very conscious decision to abrogate the free military regime. It will have its own implications, socio-economic implication, political. Some of the chief ministers, except that of Manipur and Mizoram, probably others have opposed to it. And that is purely for political reasons. And we have ways and means to ensure that you can increase the number of crossing points. We have 3 now, sir, the border crossing points. We can have 1 or 2 more, sir. The system of border huts can be there like you have in along Indo-Bangladesh border also, sir, so as to facilitate their economic activity also. So I think this decision is very apt and appropriate, and I support this.
I understand that. And yeah, our national security is, of course, the prime concern. And Rohingyas, one of the issues that you brought up about Rohingyas, in fact, anecdotally, I know that they spread all over the country, not just restricted to the neighboring states, but even they were camped in Jammu and so on and so forth, where people alleged that the Rohingyas had reached there. So obviously we had to. Now you see, our present government, the Modi government, is committed to building impenetrable borders, and it has now decided to construct a fence, a 1,643 kilometer long fence along the Indo-Myanmar border. There's going to be is going to be patrolled, and that entire area will also be paved so that there is better surveillance.
So,
What are your views on this particular border fence?
sir, firstly, sir, border fence, we have to see what is the nature of the borders we are having, Indo-Myanmar borders. You can't call it a hostile border also. But in today's, because of the today's situation, you can't even call it a stable border, sir. So it is somewhere in between. We went in for fence with Pakistan, sir, hostile border. We went in for Indo border with Bangladesh, not necessarily a hostile border against, not at all. But that was to put a stop to the illegal immigration from across the border, which were again affecting the demographic composition and the security in the northeastern states.
Right.
And today, even with Bangladesh, there are no issues. This is working out very well, sir. Of course, the monetary part is there, sir. As per the statistics available, 1 kilometer would cost around 2 to 3 crores, sir. That is one. So, if you are fencing the entire border, it's about 3,000 to 3,500 crores, which would the expenditure it would entail, sir. So that is one part. I think that can be taken care of, sir. The more important part is, sir, given the geography, you have been there, sir. I was the brigadier in Assam Rifles and supposed to be the OC troops. So I had to visit most of the posts which were difficult to be maintained. And they were maintained in mule pack role, or porters had to be employed that time, sir. Roads were not there, sir. So there are hills, there are water bodies, sir. Forests are there. It is difficult to fence those areas. So in any case, we need to physically hold those areas. And when the fence also comes up, sir, you can't leave it without any observation. You have to keep it under observations. So while the requirement of troops with fencing coming in will come down considerably, but some requirement would still remain, sir. The next part is the dedicated power supply. Now, like along the Indo-Pak border also, sir, or the LAC and normal international border, you need dedicated power supply so that they are kept lighted by night and you can see any movement this side or that side of the borders. The next point, which of course we can convince the public, that is pertaining to those socio-economic implications, because these Zo people who are either side of the borders, their contacts, unrestricted contacts will come down, will be stopped totally. So that will have certain socio-economic and political implications, which I think they can be impressed upon, given the imperatives of extreme security requirements. Today, sir, we have about 10 kilometers of border in More area, which is already fenced. And I think government has made a plan to fence another 20 kilometers. My recommendation is, sir, we should surely go in for selective fencing, starting from Arunachal Pradesh, then coming to Nagaland, and then Myanmar is about 398 kilometers, you are aware. Mizoram is about 500 kilometers. So we can have certain vulnerable areas identified, which were amenable to fencing, sir. So that fencing can be done. It definitely help us regulate the people's movement with the side of the border. So selective fencing is certainly desirable. The monetary implications or financial implications notwithstanding.
Brought out. Yeah, so I fully agree with you that while fencing is one of the options as a thought and should be carried out, but we must remember as military people, we know that there is no line in the world, no fencing in the world which is completely impenetrable. You need to then, it leads to more surveillance, more patrolling, more, boots on the ground to make sure that it is not crossed. You can have even great fortification like the Maginot line or the Barlev line or whatever you have. And our fencing J&K border in any case is an example that we need to, it certainly includes infiltration, for no doubt about that. And it's a step in the right direction, but I tend to agree with you that it can be selective. Okay, let me just come to the final question. And, this has been a very fascinating view you've given us, entire spectrum of issues. In the end, how do you think we should deal with the situation in Myanmar, and how, keeping in mind it will have an impact on our northeastern states, the overall situation, including Rohingyas, what do you think we should do?
So firstly, I will very briefly in a minute or so, if I have 2-3 minutes, talk about the Rohingyas. Sir. Now, Rohingyas issue has a bearing even on India, sir, because both Myanmar and Bangladesh are at loggerheads. Sir. Now, today, no one knows where Rohingyas belong to, sir. Now, if you delve into the history, uh, they are supposed to have been in the area of Arakan, that is the Rakhine state today, sir, and also in the area of Chittagong, which is in Bangladesh. So today the fight is between both the countries. While they are in Rakhine state, sir, because they don't have a status. Rohingya itself means an ethnic group which belongs nowhere, and of course it is a language also. Rohingya is a language also. So Myanmar, firstly, the problem is that under the 1982 citizenship law, they are debarred from any citizenships, and Buddhists are against it. Sir. When they go to Bangladesh, originally, as per the inputs, they were from Bangladesh. They migrated probably in 70s to Myanmar, and ever since they have been there. And 2017 crisis, of course, led to the influx and exodus to other countries in the region. So firstly, we have to be careful as to where they belong, sir. To my mind, they belong to both Myanmar and Bangladesh. Bangladesh, because of economic situation, they are not able to handle the pressure of so many. There are 8 to 10 lakhs already there in makeshift camps. Some of them have gone to Indonesia. Similarly, Myanmar says they don't belong to us. They are not in a position. Now these people, Rohingyas, they don't want to go back to Myanmar because of the atrocities being committed by the Myanmar army. They are scared of going there. So what do we do, sir? Like, firstly, this has got direct impact because both are our neighbors. So as far as Rohingyas are concerned, I think, sir, the UN, the Southeast Asian, ASEAN countries, China, India, Russia, and the countries which enjoy influence on both the countries, Myanmar and Bangladesh, sir, we have to bring about rapprochement between the two and repatriate the Rohingyas, some of them to Myanmar, sir, create peaceful environment in Rakhine, sir, and rehabilitate them there, sir. And similarly, some of them can stay back in Bangladesh also, because Myanmar may not be in a position to accept them all en bloc, sir. So that we have to drive home to both of them. And today, this is the largest stateless ethnic group in the world today, as has been declared, and the most persecuted community, I think. Even as per the 1951 treaty, which deals with the refugees, we have to take care from humanitarian point of view. Otherwise, it has become a humanitarian disaster today, sir. As far as the Myanmar situation is concerned, sir, there are inputs that China is having discussions with both the PDF and NUG, as also the military junta there. So, keeping them both engaged, they have tried, they have not succeeded so far, sir. I think certainly at this point in time, the democratic movement is gaining currency and traction in the country, sir. So that side is the wind blowing today. Definitely, military junta has lost their credibility today, as of today, sir. And they have lost credibility to an extent that they have invoked the conscription law of 2011, and they are forcing the people, young, able-bodied men and women, to join, which is being opposed to vehemently by them, sir. So military is not in a position to control. PDF is gaining traction, sir. So I think we should engage them in the talks. That is one, sir. And while we engage them with the talks, concurrently, sir, we should ask them to stop violence altogether with some international penalty. That is second, sir. Third is humanitarian assistance for reconstruction and rebuilding of the country, sir. So peaceful environment has to be created. We need stable borders, sir, across Indo-Myanmar boundary. And thereafter, sir, we can go in for conduct of elections, democratic elections, and have a democratic form of government in that country, sir. And with equal say to the military junta also in that country, sir. So I think that is the way forward. So de-escalation of the violence, cessation of hostilities, dialogues, release of the detainees, and then economic assistance from all the countries, Asian Development Banks and International Reconstruction Development Bank, and Japan, South Korea, India. All these countries can chip in, sir, International Monetary Fund. And after we have brought both the warring parties to a negotiating table, sir, then the reconstruction should start, sir.
Right, right. So, that's our best hope that the country becomes peaceful, returns to democracy. But as we have seen in our neighborhood, once the military gets a taste of power, it becomes usually very hard to divest itself, of that power and to get back to democratic means. But I fully agree with you that that is generally the way forward.
Only
all that
one
remains-
point, sir,
Yeah.
one more addition. While we will be trying for a restoration of democratic setups, sir, our government must remain engaged with the military dictator there, sir.
Absolutely,
We
absolutely.
should in no way let our guard down, sir. The mistakes which were made earlier, we should not be that moralistic in our approach. It should be pragmatic, sir. Because unless we increase our engagements with whatever is the dispensation there, sir, no way that we can ensure our security in the northeastern states and also negate the Chinese growing influence there, sir.
I fully
So that
agree with
is
you.
what I would
Yeah.
recommend that, sir.
I think the days when we were in the old Nehruvian idealism and thinking along those lines are way past. The present government, from what we have seen, believes in realpolitik, believes in being realistic, believes in national interest above all. I think all governments look at national interest, but the present dispensation looks at it a little more in the way of the realists, that we have to pursue this. So to that extent, speaking to anybody who's in power and engaging them is important, and I agree with. So all that remains is for me to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you very much for this wonderful, really wonderful expression of your views and opinions and knowledge, which I'm sure will benefit a lot of people who listen, whether people who are starting out and are interested in this fascinating country in our backyard, or are looking to develop further perceptions on the geopolitical situation. So thank you very much. I personally benefited a great deal from your presence, and I'm looking forward to your continued support to the Gyan Chakra. This was the second of the Gyan Chakra dialogues. We'll have many more. And certainly I look forward to seeing you on many more platforms. The last thing I will say is that all the views expressed today by Shammi Raj and myself are our personal views. These do not have any official sanctions, so nobody should go looking for any pointers in that. We do not have access to anything classified. We do what people do, study and develop views, and so that's a disclaimer I like to bring in. So thank you once again, Shammi Raj. Thank you very much indeed, and see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure interacting with you, and thank you so much to have invited me, sir.
Thank you very
Look
much.
forward to more associations.
Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.